And we're live back on the podcast with Dr. Jim Madden for our usual Freaky Friday episode where we talk about something freaky and then answer whatever questions that you want to send our way. Speaking of freaky things, Will Smith, self-advertised vessel of love, smacked Chris Rock in the mouth. Maybe we'll talk about that. Maybe we won't. Gentle listeners can let us know. But good professor, it's been at least a week. How you been and what's new?
I'm gonna come out like I'm gonna come out swinging with the I'm mad as hell old man argument here. So as you know, I was all giddy with the promise that Onnit was going to drop a new program today.
Dude, was it an April Fool's joke?
And I was worried because it's April. It appears to be an April Fool's joke. It appears that they're like it's like this absurd Onnit aerobics thing, and it's just an ad for their other programs.
Oh yeah,
I'm hella pissed. You know,
I don't see that as a great marketing move. Honestly, it would have been because it gets their core fan base like you super pumped and then super disappointed. It would have been better if they did like the double fools, like here's a joke program, but here's the real program. You know what I mean? Yeah. That would have been cool.
Or if you click the link, we'll give you 20% off, right? Because they said like what the ad was. I'm sorry about going on to this, but
that's all right.
The ad is like, hey, you loved the Onnit 6, you loved the Onnit in 30, these other programs. So it's assuming you're really into all that stuff.
Right.
And then what the drop is, now maybe there's more coming later today. What the drop is today is just an ad for those programs. So you enticed us because we loved those programs, and now you're like, it's like who's the audience that you're trying to hit there? Right? So,
yeah, bad move on it, but you can still redeem yourself.
You can redeem yourself, Joe Rogan.
The day is not over yet. Let me take my coat off. I'm feeling too restricted right now, Dr. Jim. If people wouldn't mind, let me know how the audio is, because I'm testing this new clip-on mic, and just gives me more room to move. I'm a mobile guy. So speaking of, we'll start on a fitness note. How's your training been recently? Have you been doing the Onnit programs, or what's the old lifting program look like?
Let's see. Occasionally whenever I'm in a jam, right, and I just kind of need to get something in, right, I do Onnit stuff, right, because I got a lot of that stuff memorized already. So for instance, when I was traveling last week to Virginia, I had a couple of days, where I didn't have access to anything but a pull-up bar in an open field. And so I did.
What else do you need, man?
I know there's really nothing more you need, really. Seriously, it's seriously, So I did the Onnit calisthenic stuff and threw in some pull-ups, right?
Yeah,
this is a really good way to go. I mean, I love this stuff, right? I'm not breaking up over this, but I'm a little upset.
Yeah, no, you should be, man. that is a fireable offense as far as I'm concerned.
But other than that, I am just chugging along on this program Alex is made for me on double pressing, right?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. I want to go back real quick to the pull-up thing because gentle listeners, if you just need like a bare bones, tell me what to do, coach, help me get in good shape. If you just have a field and a pull-up bar, one of my favorite things to do, or even a track and a pull-up bar, is just do some interval running. Run, jog, sprint, just put it on some type of repeat. And then every time you like make your way around, just do a set of pull-ups, right?
Yeah.
Or every 2 times you make your way around, do a set of pull-ups. You do that for like 20, 30 minutes, 3 times a week. You're going to get in pretty decent shape just from that.
It's the proverbial Pavel strength aerobics, right?
Right. And if you have a kettlebell there is, I used to do this at the, back in PA, back at the old Y. I would bring a kettlebell to the track, put it in the corner of the track. I would do the run, jog, sprint, hit, and they'd be in like opposite corners, the kettlebell and the pull-up bar. So every other time I'd stop at a corner and do either a set of snatches or a set of pull-ups. Awesome routine. Love that routine. I miss that routine.
And like let's just say you got your open field, and you start jogging around your open field, and every time, and I mean slow jog, right? Every time you get to the pull-up bar, you pop up there and do whatever, like 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever pull-ups.
You can ladder it if you want to.
Ladder if you want, yeah. Do that for an hour. You're in shape. Like do that for an hour, 3 days a week. You're in shape.
You're done. You're in shape. That's it. Yeah. Keep it simple. Love it.
You're like a 1%er fitness person. If you did that for a year, right? Just jogged and did pull-ups for an hour, 3 days a week, I would guarantee you, unless you eat like you have a death wish, right?
Right. Yeah. And if you just even occasionally threw in sprints,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Then, and
You
then
you like Pat Flynn. I hate
yeah,
to say this, but like Pat Flynn doesn't need to be in business, right? Like it's
yeah,
like this stuff isn't rocket science, says the
I know.
neurosurgeon.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Now I'm
But
glad. No, gentle
this,
listeners, thank you for
yeah,
paying me to give
yeah.
you the workouts.
But here's the deal. Pat's got children, man. So
Right.
don't.
So keep the cash coming, please.
And here's the deal.
Please.
You can do Pat. And I'm not just saying this in a panic because I don't want to ruin Pat's livelihood. Right?
At least I'm trying to be honest about it. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, right. As you know, I struggle with this, right? There's more to there's more to fitness than minimalism, right?
Of course.
And you can get in better shape than this. When I say you're a 1%er, you're a 1%er in the like overall pathetically unhealthy American population, right? If you did that, but let's say you just did this, you did this jog pull-up workout, right? And then did 1 day a week, you did just sprints. I mean, just 10-second goes with 50-second breaks for 10 rounds, and then threw in some like high volume push-ups that same day.
Oh, money.
Cool. That's it. That is it. Like this would be like a good challenge. Like put this out there. Here's Pat's.
Yeah, for any of the gentle listeners who are not doing some sort of physical training program, take what we just laid out, use it for 2 months, and report back with us. We would love to hear about it. So, by the way, real quick, sparkles and explosions on Philosophy for the People, we have crossed our first 1,000 subscriber mark.
Excellent.
So that's a big benchmark for a YouTube channel. So very cool. Thank you guys for helping us to do that. And I wish I had a little confetti or something I could throw in the air, but I don't.
We thank the listeners with a free fitness program right there.
There you go.
There it is. Right.
You have it. Stick it on the fitness theme for now, and keep your questions coming, guys. We'll do. We'll work our way through these. Here's one on nutrition. Deadly Havoc says, what is a good nutrition book, including recipes for beginners with little to no experience? Any off the top of your head here, Jim?
I like Mark. Now it's keto, right? No. But it's Mark Sisson's 2 meals a day, I think is excellent, right? And his original, I forget the title of his original Primal Blueprint, I think is very, very good, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to be completely self-serving, and I don't have a copy of it here, Deadly Havoc, but I have a copy of my first book, Paleo Workouts for Dummies. Terrible title. It's actually just a book on kettlebell workouts. But my second book, also a dummies book, is called Fast Diets for Dummies, and it's kind of serving. Yeah, so let me do my old grumpy old man. So it was supposed to be intermittent fasting for dummies. At the time, Wiley said that's too complicated. Then we said, okay, fasting for dummies, and they said no, that sounds religious. And then they're like, how about we call it Fast Diets for Dummies? I'm like, okay, that sounds dumb, but you call it whatever you want, and I'll just write the book.
So when I heard fast diets, I was thinking you meant like on the quick.
Oh yeah, right, exactly, right. Yeah, but apparently they didn't think that. So it's called Fast Diets for Dummies, but it's a survey of intermittent fasting strategies and kind of like gives the pros and cons. Also gives just some basic, well-evidenced parameters for healthy eating. And then my co-author of that book, Dr. Kellyanne Petrucci, she put a bunch of recipes in there. So if you just want a For Dummies book, which is great for beginners, check out my second book, Fast Diets for Dummies, on the nutrition side.
When did the diet book come out for you?
Boy, oh boy. So what was this one? Was this one 2012? The diet one came out,
Man,
I think a year later. So maybe 2013, something like that.
You're kind of an OG in the intermittent fasting trend there.
I don't get the credit I deserve, Dr. Jim. Thank you so much for bringing that up.
It's like before Mark Sisson, I am.
Right. Yeah. Definitely not like an originator or pioneer, but yeah, I was sort of kind of on the early side of it. For paleo, I was kind of, for the paleo trend, it was more like at the top of the wave. That's why Wiley wanted to put paleo in the title, because it was so popular back then. And I told them, don't do it, because in 5 years, nobody's going to know what the heck that is. Nobody's going to care. Yeah. So we were both right. I was right, because that's true. Almost nobody cares about it anymore. But they were right in the sense that it did move a good volume of books, and it still sells pretty well even now. So I don't know. I'm over it.
Once again, I mentioned Alex pressing program he did for me. And I don't want to give away too much of what the dynamics of the program are, but right now he's got me pressing 60 reps, double pressing 60 rep of volume with 28 kilogram kettlebells 3 times a week, and it's easy.
Oh yeah, Alex he's a wizard, man, with
He's
his
a
programming.
wizard,
He
man.
is.
That dude is a wizard. Yeah.
Yeah, like when Pat Flynn is kind of stuck or he needs some fixing, he goes to the Hebrew Hammer for sure.
You know, in like I thought of myself as like a fitness black belt, and then until I started working with the hammer here, and I'm like, no, man, I'm like maybe a brown belt, right? I mean, the guy's game is sophisticated, and
he lives it and breathes it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you think of it like double pressing with 28 kilograms for 60 reps in a single workout and have it be super easy to where like you're kind of compressing the number of sets it takes and stuff. That's pretty good. And I was not that when I started this. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. By the way, I'm sorry to be annoying, but I want to ask people again, does this new mic sound decent? Let me know in the comments, because I like using this a lot more than the big ugly thing. So let me know. Let's take some more questions.
Yep.
5-A Production says, why do you think Lonergan's works are not better known even in the Catholic world? Is there any good introductory material to the thought of Lonergan? I find insight quite difficult to tackle. Yeah, I have a theory on this. I think Lonergan and Barry Miller are very similar in this respect. I think that they're both geniuses. I think that they both have solved deep problems that many people don't even realize that they've solved, and that they are two thinkers that you seriously need to try and understand, especially when it comes to epistemology and working down in the vineyards of existence. The problem is they're just so quirky, they're so systematic, and they're so kind of unique in and of themselves that they're like, it is to like, you can't just tap into them a little bit, right? Like you need to like dedicate yourself to, I'm going to really understand Lonergan, and nothing is going to really help prepare you to understand Lonergan. That's the problem. Same thing with Barry Miller. Like even a general Thomistic background is not going to help you that much with Miller, because he's so quirky, blending the Thomistic and analytic tradition, that he's just got like they both have sort of languages all their own. So they're both extremely unforgiving. Lonergan and Miller are both guys like, look, if you can't keep up with the adult conversation, just leave the table, right? They do no hand holding at all. They just assume that you're operating at like a minimum 140 IQ, and like we're just going to go to town, boys, and that's it. So they're unforgiving.
I'm sorry, the adults are talking. The adults are talking.
That's it. They're unforgiving. They're systematic. They do no hand holding. They're quirky, and they have a language of their own. So they're just not accessible. All I can say is they're brilliant, and it's worth the effort. Jim, maybe you have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, you know, someone has to write for the initiated, right? You know what I mean? And it might be that they're just not going to be accessible to the uninitiated, right? You know what I mean? And like the only way to get some people like that might be a life of study, right?
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things that I think this is related that I've been struck by is how much of what we think of as like the classic texts and like the really important, you know, thinkers and stuff has to do with just like the nitty gritty of pedagogy in the undergraduate classroom, right? When I think of like how many decisions I make about like what my students troubles me, right? How many decisions I make about like what my students are going to read and what they're going to be exposed to is partly driven by just like how long's the book, right? Like, you know, how hard is it to read? You know, how does it fit in the schedule? But you think that it's really perverse. That is like totally letting school get in the way of education.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because like, you know, like everybody teaches for Kant in an ethics class. They teach like the metaphysics of morals or the groundwork of the metaphysics of morals, right? Well, why? Because like the latter is like 80 pages long, right? Whereas you really should teach Kant's Second Critique, right? But that's a great big book, right? But like you could read the groundwork and come away not realizing like how Kant connects all of this deeply to religion, right?
Yes.
Or kind of like rationalized, you know, religion, right? You could miss the fact that like he's using practical reason to defend, like to do the metaphysical work. He denied himself to theoretical reason in the First Critique. You know what I mean? But you miss all that, and you just see like the voluntarist deontological ethic of Kant disconnected from like the theological, metaphysical theory of free will. All the
man, that was my undergrad impression of Kant, right?
Yeah.
All I have come to learn that I learned about Kant through undergrad, and to some extent masters, is that I just don't understand Kant, right? There's like, I just need to go back and I just need to try again. Yeah.
And that's a great example though, where it's just because if you're going to like uncork the Second Critique in your undergraduate ethics class where there's not going to be a lot of room for a lot of other stuff there, and you better know some so there, like, there's this whole impression, just as one example, an impression of Kant, that's really just a product of the nitty-gritty practicality of teaching a 16-week undergraduate course in introductory ethics, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I bet you people like this is where I'm connecting what you're saying, is like Lonergan, Barry Miller, they're victims of that, because you're never going to walk into your undergraduate philosophy or religion course and teach Lonergan.
Oh,
it's not going to happen, right? Even though he might be the best, he might be, what is most self-evident as such, he's the least self-evident to us, right?
Yeah, good point.
And so like, I think a lot of people like I think, gosh, I struggle to find anything I can give my students by Heidegger that they're actually going to be able to do, that I can work into another course, right? So does that mean I just shouldn't teach that? No, but what do I do pedagogically? I don't know the answer to that, but I'm very troubled. Like
rock hard place, Jim.
Rock hard place. Yeah. Like, this is one of those like things as I've grown into the profession, I've realized we're really getting this wrong as a profession. Right.
Yeah. Right.
But given like the way we package education, I don't know how to fix it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we need to go back to Plato's model and like do like some like naked Mongolian wrestling between mentorships and
you're not.
Yeah. Next question. Hey, real quick.
Well, wait.
5 a days. He had one other point. Who do I recommend is maybe some helpful commentators? I'll give you two. Robert Spitzer has a good command of Lonergan, so his stuff is in some ways a nice introduction to Lonergan.
Yeah.
And Elmar Kramer, who was on this podcast, has an entire book dedicated to trying to summarize the thought of Barry Miller. It's called Analysis of Existence. So there's two sources for you. All right, let's scroll back up. Dry Apologist says, what channels do you guys think are the best counter apologist atheist channels? I don't watch a lot of YouTube. Believe it or not, I make a lot of it, but I don't. I'll name some of who I think are the best atheists and my favorite atheistic thinkers. Nietzsche, certainly up there. More contemporary, I think the best contemporary one is dead, would probably be J.L. Mackie or Bill Rowe. Those two, I think, are the most challenging and stimulating for me. I do enjoy reading Graham Oppy. Graham Oppy is sort of one of the guys who's always like, let me check and see what Graham Oppy has said about this particular point. So those would be some of my, I guess, top thinkers on the atheistic side. How about you, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same thing. I don't do a lot of YouTube and that sort of thing. I mean, if you want the really good YouTube channels on UFOs, I can help you with that.
Yeah.
Right.
If I'm doing YouTube, it's usually like, what's the cheat code for this Nintendo Switch game, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I know some good YouTube on how to install a toilet. Like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like, yeah, no, for YouTube, for me, it's like just short practical affairs. And
how to fix a broken pipe in your crawl space. That came from the same project.
And maybe we should say something about that. Like, for me, it's just like, man, philosophy, and I hope I'm not being too inconsistent and contradicting ourselves with this channel, but for me, like, it needs to mostly be read, And I hope that's appreciated about this channel. Is like, this channel is, we can't answer all the deepest questions. Yeah. In the greatest amount of depth here, because it's just a YouTube channel. What we can do is we can try and get ideas out there and entice people, but we want everybody to go much deeper with this. Obviously,
read the book, damn it.
Read the book. Read the damn book. Right? Eat the damn yolks. Read the damn book.
Yep. The it was Abby Hoffman's big counterculture treatise he titled "Steal This Book," right? Sort of like sort of our title of our like subtitle of the YouTube channel. You're like, turn off this channel, right? Right. That's what we want you to do. So eventually,
is the theme of like trying to like just put ourselves out of business for everything I do. Like, I just put myself out of fitness business with the
right?
And now I'm trying to put myself out of the philosophy business by telling people to read the book.
Just shut this down right now. This has gone wrong. Sorry, we're taking this down.
Yeah. So yes, very good.
Wrecked your life on YouTube.
Good questions. Here's a fun one. Alfonso says, aside from the Eucharist, if in terms of last meals, what would your last meal be? An all-time favorite food? Oh boy.
Gosh, man.
Can we separate this by categories? Because like it's so like favorite dessert, hands down, it's bread pudding with a little side of ice cream. I mean, that's gonna show how weak of a man I really am. Anytime you put that on the menu. I am a pretty traditional like steak and potatoes type. Like a great just traditional steak meal for me is probably like pretty tops. I guess that's kind of boring, but it's also true. How about you?
It's an interesting question, because there's all sorts of stuff that, probably at like a, twitchy feel, right, would do it for me that I don't eat anymore. Like the jalapeno chip, as you know, is like a trigger for me.
Yeah. What was it? What's the one at Sonic that you used to get again?
Oh, that was rock bottom, right? The chili jalapeno cheese tater tots, right? The thing with,
reminds me of what I used to get at Arby's. They used to get like the Big Montana, the curly fries, and a milkshake.
Yeah, exactly.
The Big Montana, like I don't even think they could put it on the menu anymore because it's so unhealthy. It's like you got to be like in the know. To order the Big Montana.
Is like I don't think I could eat that again. Like because I like when I even mention like chili cheese tater tots Sonic, it's like I'm almost going into like a PTSD driven flashback, right? It's like, you know what I mean? Like because remember like following the downstream intestinal consequences the last time I ate that led me to lose 100 pounds and change my life.
It was the greatest thing that ever happened.
Yeah, it was the worst and the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my life, right? And so I don't think I could say, like, even though I know there's like a part of my brain that would go into a hedonic hyperdrive if I ate that, I can't say that's how I want to go out, right? Like last meal kind of thing, right? So a lot of this like might have to do with like the reward structure I had as a kid in that. But anyway, I still think my favorite meal is bacon and eggs. And even though I have bacon and eggs like almost every day, right? I still think my favorite meal is bacon and eggs.
Yeah. I mean, when it's well done, it's hard to beat.
Yeah,
it really is. Yeah, you get some like good bacon.
Yeah.
You have somebody who can really. How do you like your eggs?
Basically scrambled. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Like a good omelet. Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Jim, help pick some questions here. We got lots of stuff.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Saul. I think Saul's talking about our jogging with the pull-ups.
Outdoor track work is just around the corner. It sounds awesome. Yeah, because I think if you're in the Midwest, my friend, it's finally starting to look. Well, that's a lie because it actually snowed yesterday here.
Yeah, that's right. I think Saul's a Minneapolis guy, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also like if you don't have a pull-up bar at the track, I always wish I did. You could do the old like Pavel's good old man maker,
mm-hmm.
Jog a lap, do a set of swings, jog a lap, do a set of swings.
Mm-hmm.
Get that up. Yep.
Yeah. Julio says, question, what's your take on the thin essence discussion? I've only read Clark on this and didn't know there was a discussion about this. Yeah, this would be a one we should bring up with Gavin when he's on because he's thought a lot about this. Yeah, I'm with Clark. The idea is that there's that there could be, some thinkers have suggested, a sort of essence before it is imparted existence, right? So there's a sort of essence out there that somehow gets kind of filled up with existence. And the traditional Thomistic perspective is no, that's not the case. It's all produced all at once in God's act of creation. Barry Miller actually talks about this quite a lot because he's got this really cool argument in Fullness of Being where he starts from the premise that nothing can be conceived of before it exists. And what he means is you can't ever say anything about something before it actually exists, right? And if you can, Miller says, then that means it must exist sometime like up ahead of us in the future, right? But then as soon as you can sort of say something, it's a complicated argument, I'm probably going to screw it up, right? About something now, if you can really say something about something now, right? It means it exists up ahead of us, which means it can't be prevented from existing, which negates its contingency. So he actually says you get a contradiction from this. Yeah. And where Miller goes, because he assumes that there's no pre-existing essences before existence, right? This is part of the reason you can't conceive of anything before it exists, is he says that any sort of finite metaphysically composite structure is actually a contradictory structure unless it refers out to an extrinsic cause. That's the only way you can make sense of it. So Miller takes this very complicated line of reasoning, which incorporates part of what you're talking about here, Julio, and makes, I think, an absolutely brilliant contingency argument out of it. And it's really cool and really technical. It's one of these things you just have to go read Miller for, and he'll address your point here in fair amount of detail because he has to address this to get his argument going. what's cool about his argument is you don't need any sort of universal principle of sufficient reason or anything like that, right? Because he's just saying, look, you either refer out to an extrinsic cause, or these are contradictory structures and they can't exist. So trying to tie things together, the complicated thought of Barry Miller. Like, already I can see, like, I'm hesitant to even try and like put it out there because there's so many. Right. It's such a web of ideas for Miller. Everything is. So it's hard to just like pull any one thing out for Miller and throw it out there. But if you're interested in this, Julio, I'd recommend his book Fullness of Being, because he does go into this debate a fair amount there. Mm-hmm.
So I have nothing. This one I wanted to throw up here.
Yep.
Does philosophy make progress compared to science? Why does it seem that philosophy has made little progress? What does philosophical progress ever even look like? Okay. Lots of interesting things to say there. Like, and this is implicitly Kant's argument against metaphysics, right? Or like it's a big worry about it, right? He says in the first critique, look, why is it that, we're getting like scientific consensus for the moment, right? But we don't get philosophical consensus. And this is like, he seems like philosophy ends in antinomies, right? But also, okay, anytime I hear this, when someone says, philosophy doesn't make progress, I think one could say, well, that just begs the question, because there's plenty of people who think they've figured it all out.
They've solved a lot of stuff, right?
It could be a confusion between consensus and progress, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Now, but there's this perfectly good question, like, why is it that philosophy is not consensus generating in the way that it does seem, say, natural science is, right? And it does seem that we can agree on a method in natural science that at least generates temporary consensus, or allows us to like move smoothly from one proposed thing to another, right? That doesn't seem to just end in I'm just saying you're wrong and moving on, right? Okay, I think that's a legitimate worry about philosophy. Okay, the way I deal with this typically is, okay, let's go back. Let's quit looking at philosophy first and foremost as like this 21st century
technological
academic discipline that's at home in academic departments in Western universities, right? Because like, frankly, what could be a worse way to judge something, right, than to take its manifestation in the contemporary Western academy?
Tell us how you feel.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, right. I mean, it's sort of like those of us who are, anyways, but that's where I am, right? And let's look at like what philosophy, like as a discipline, and even using that word seems to kind of like beg that question. But like, as a discipline was founded with, let's make it Socrates. Let's look at Plato, right? And is Plato in any way, shape, or form predicting that philosophy is going to end a consensus? No way, right? The philosopher goes back to the cave and he gets killed.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Like, is Plato saying that you expect consensus, expect progress, expect one world philosophy to come out of this? He is not saying that. He's very skeptical. He's very pessimistic about philosophical progress in the sense of building consensus, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And also, because does that mean though that the character Socrates in the dialogues does not make progress? It does not. Socrates does make progress. He makes progress as a contemplative human being. He makes progress as a just human being. Do you see that? But it doesn't mean philosophy as a discipline progresses. Right? Philosophy in the original sense, the important sense, right?
It's a sort of personal, almost spiritual quest, right?
It's a lifestyle.
I love
it. Yeah. Lifestyle of the lover of wisdom. But note it's lover in the sense of like, man, I want her, but I don't have her. Right.
Yes.
It's a constant going forward and like loving in like thinking some of the Platonic dialogues, it's spelled out in terms of eros, sexual desire, right? It's someone who's like horny for the truth, right? Always going for it with this like mad, crazed, horny desire for it. And there's progress, there's human progress in approaching the truth, right? And maybe getting it, but it doesn't mean it like you're going to see this as a progressive discipline in the sense of like modern natural sciences. But like the notion of a discipline in that sense did not occur to anyone until, like the 17th century, or maybe in the medieval university. That's foreign to the origin of philosophy, right?
Yes.
So I think I have made a philosophical progress in my life, right? And I think, other people I know have, and I hope I hope to have helped some people do that, but I don't see that in any way saying that like the discipline of philosophy is progressive. Like that's a fantasy of the Enlightenment, right?
Dude,
This progressive view of reality in general applied to academic disciplines. Yeah.
To that, I say amen. Bravo. And we're just going to keep bouncing back between the philosophy of fitness here. Excuse me for not being able to pronounce this correctly. Gabra Furikyle? Close enough. Has a question. He says, any chance you could speak briefly on working out in a fasted state? If somebody is already severely restricting calories because of Lent, should they continue to exercise? If so, how much? I guess. Sorry, the question got cut off. So if you want to clarify in the comments, please do. Yeah. So generally, I think you certainly can exercise in a fasted state, but yeah, Jim does it every day. I do it not every day, but more often than not. Of course. Yeah, I mean, we do have to talk about the calorie and intensity thing. I mean, it's not just exercise that matters here. I mean, if you do push calories too low for too long, you can get some metabolic downshifting and some detrimental effects. Some of the more interesting research that's come out in the last couple of years. I talked about this on the podcast previously. They compared two groups of people. One group kept calories sort of suppressed throughout the entire week at a particular deficit. I forget the percentages. Another group kept calories suppressed 5 days and then bumped them back up, I think at least to maintenance, if not a little bit higher, for 2 consecutive days. And they found that both were equal in terms of weight loss, but the group that bumped the calories up had less metabolic downshifting, more lean muscle retention. So it was just better, right, to have that caloric wave. So I'm a big fan of waving calories. And I'm also a big fan of, I guess, yeah, my general advice here is wave intensity in all areas of your physical and nutritional life. Not every day should be as difficult as you can. You shouldn't have every workout be as difficult as you can. I don't care how tough you think you are, you will burn out, you will overtrain, you will get injured. So have some days where you can, where you push the throttle, but have other days where you back up a little bit too in terms of both the diet and exercise. So yes, go ahead. My blessings to you, but be prudent. Jim, what would you add?
Yeah, 100%. I know that. And I would even say that wave intensity probably needs to apply to like your intellectual life, right?
You'll burn out. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll burn out.
Yeah. So, okay. The follow up here is, if so, how would you approach it? Like time, type, etc. Yeah. I mean, I think 5 days of kind of more intense calorie restriction and 2 days where you kind of blip the throttle calorically is good. And I generally like to do my hardest training days on the days where I have more calories. That's a personal preference. I still might train faster on those days. I just might eat more afterwards. So that's another way to go about it. I would have 2 to 4 days of strength training, decent resistance training per week, couple cardio days, and do mobility every day and go for a walk every day as a general structure. All right. Good questions. Jim, let me take this one and then we'll let Jim pick another one. I says, what do you guys think about video games, TV, and entertainment and technology in general? Is it a detriment to human flourishing and agency? I mean, I'll be frank, I love video games. For me, before Jim tears into all this and talks about technological nihilism, I think like anything else, right, there's a prudent time for leisure like this. So video games for me, I think if you're failing to flourish in other ways and you're just sitting in mom's basement playing video games all day, that's usually vicious, right? But for me, I will often play Nintendo with my kids while my mom's making dinner, and it's just a time that we love having together. And Dad just it makes me feel really manly to crush my small children in Mario Kart all the time too. So it kind of like builds my self-esteem.
I mean, guys got to have an outlet, man. So.
Yeah, guys got to have an outlet. And for me, it's funny because H.L. Mencken, that crotchety old atheist, used to have kind of a funny line about drinking. He had rules of how to drink like a gentleman. And one of the rules was like, you never drink while you have work to do. And another rule was you never drink alone. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a good rule for a lot of things, games, right? Yeah, for video games. Like you never play video games or watch TV when you have work to do. And you never do it alone. You do it as a sort of community thing. So that's how I think about it. Now, you take a whack here, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that people miss in the kind of like moody like Heideggerian critiques of technology that I'm like into, is that even in that tradition of thought, no one is saying that we're like there's this non-technological option for us, right? And like somehow to say that I'm going to reject technology is to still make like technology the primary object of my self-conception, right? So if I'm defining myself negatively by it, it's no different than if I'm defining myself, positively by it. Okay, either way, I'm obsessed with technology, right? And so what like Heidegger means by having a free relationship to technology is not the rejection of technology. Like that would be deeply inauthentic of any of us to do that at this point, right? And I think a lot of people's attempts to like carry on as if they're doing that are kind of silly, right? Okay. But it doesn't mean like you just give yourself over to it, right? Like it can go too far. And I think if what's going on is technology is and you asked specifically about entertainment technology, if it's fundamentally changing your attitude towards being, right, such that it's like leading you, like if like the dominant metaphor, here's an example, like if the dominant metaphor by which you like sort reality now is like video games, such that like things like simulation hypotheses and stuff like that become like really plausible to you. Do you see what I mean? Then I think you're going too far. I think it's like when the technology becomes like the dominant way in which you relate to the world, it becomes how you think about things. And everything you think about is mediated through it, right? Then I think we've gone too far, right? Now, where and how that happens is going to be like probably, very much a question for practical reason. It's going to be a question for the virtues and things like that. So there's not going to be a hard line there, right? But my kids, like I don't play a lot of video games anymore. I just find it in some level boring now, right? Thing, right? But yeah, I mean, like Mario Kart battles with my kids were big for a long time for me, right? And our kids still play our kids play video games, we used to have like really hardcore limits on it, like 15 minutes a week, right?
Yeah, we limit it with our kids. Yeah.
And they got smart, so they would pool it, so they would do it consecutively, so they could like pass the thing,
right.
But now it's gotten to the point where they've got a good relationship to it, so we don't really have a rule about it now, right?
Yeah, they can self-regulate, they can discipline. They're self-disciplined at this point, right? Yeah, that's the goal.
And so we Saturday night, I will guarantee you, we'll watch the fights, right? Okay. And, there's some TV series we do, but it's not the dominant thing, right? And it's not how it doesn't entirely determine how we think about ourselves. Yeah.
The golden mean. Yeah, that's good. All right, we'll take one or two more here. Jim, grab if there's anyone that interests you.
Yeah, that was the one I was looking at there.
That was a good one.
Let's see if any news come in.
Here's one from Matt Fisher. What is matter? What types of matter exist? What is the link between potency and matter? Thanks. I was just looking around for usually sitting around my desk. Phaser's book, Aristotle's Revenge, has a really good discussion on the traditional understanding of matter versus the contemporary understanding. So I think that might be a resource for you. But traditionally, I mean, matter is it's a principle, right? A principle of both sort of individualization and particularization, right? It's what ties down form. So depending if we're talking sort of in the modern paradigm or the Aristotelian paradigm, is going to be more relevant to your question of what the link is between potency and matter. But Jim, I'd be curious how you introduce this to your philosophy students.
Yeah, I mean, I think this word matter is equivocated on so much, right? And I think it's really clear, like matter. I mean, so right now, Pat and I and all of you are matter to the substance, quote unquote, of the conversation we're having, right? Like, matter is anything, right, that has potency towards some other act, right?
Yeah, it really is just a principle of potency.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. So like Aristotle is very clear. He thinks like the citizens are the matter of the city, right? Okay. And so in the same way, the organs are the matter of the body, and like the elements are the matter of the organs, and all that. And so I think the way I explain like what matter is in the Aristotelian tradition is just anytime you have a part whole distinction, okay, the parts are matter to the whole, right? And in Aristotle sees all of reality in hierarchically arranged matter form arrangements, right? But that's very different from what's meant by matter in in like physics, okay, contemporary physics. And I think though, like a lot of us have done a very bad job of trying to like
keep them distinct. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? Like we want to so badly to like have Aristotle have a place in like the contemporary discussion that we kind of like we take the distinction and we take his notion of matter out of its natural environment to like the point of like a kind of distortion.
Yeah, I'm not even comfortable because I've been doing this research project. I'll probably bug you to look at it here soon, Jim, where I'm trying to test the hypothesis if grounding could be seen as an instance of essentially ordered causation. And part of this project is going through the different understandings of causation then and now. And I'm even uncomfortable with like taking Aristotle's notion of efficient causation and saying like that's kind of like nomological causation, because it's really not, right? It's just not.
Thank you for saying that thing. Yeah. Like Heidegger's great line, there is no efficient cause in Aristotle.
Yeah.
And what he means, he's not saying there isn't, you know, a third mode of causality that Aristotle talks about, but it's that it has nothing to do with like contemporary nomologically. Like,
right. And so I'm like trying to disentangle this mess in this paper, and it's like become a paper all of its own, just trying to disentangle this mess of like, I think it's almost better. And I make this suggestion. I've made this suggestion before. It was actually interesting to see that David Bentley Hart makes this suggestion in his new book, which is not very good, but this part was good, where he says like, let's start just thinking of Aristotle's four causes as four explanations or logical descriptions or something like that, because the term cause and contemporary like nomological causation is just so distant, right?
That's nothing to do with it.
Right. Yeah. So what's the point? Keep these things distinct, right? Just because the term is the same doesn't mean that they mean the same thing.
And I think this is one of the reasons why I don't get involved in a lot of like contemporary apologetic sort of stuff, because like so much of what's going on with that is trying to like, you know, take like some classic position and showing its relevance in a current debate of some sort, which I think inevitably just ends up deeply misunderstanding, you know, what the original was up to, right?
Yeah.
And so like why take modernity in its own terms, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's why I do recommend Faser's book Aristotle's Revenge, because he makes those distinctions and makes them quite clearly, and I think that will be helpful for many people. All right. Spence says, congrats on the 1,000 subs on Philosophy Review. Thank you guys. Seriously. This is, we got there, I think, sooner than anticipated. It's never hard building a new channel from scratch. And 1,000 it certainly doesn't seem a lot, especially compared to my other channel or pretty much any significant channel on YouTube. But it actually is significant for us. And we very much appreciate it. It is a milestone. So please help us continue to grow. All right, Jim, you want to pick a closer here for us? What catches your eye? Thanks for the great questions and discussions today, gentle listeners. Yeah. Fun as always.
Question for Jim: in which ways have you been influenced by McIntyre and Taylor? Oh man, maybe I shouldn't have picked that. I don't even know how to answer that. Right? I think using Taylor, right? Like Taylor, getting really understanding Taylor led me to do things like take Hegel seriously, right? It led me to do things like take Merleau-Ponty seriously. It got me into people like Herbert Dreyfus. Okay, so like Taylor opened this whole vista of ideas, right? That otherwise I think I would have missed, given like kind of the narrowness of my own training, right? As far as McIntyre goes, right, I think McIntyre's sort of historicist, and be careful with that, right? But historicist like take on things, like his comfort with saying like traditions are moving targets, but still sources of stability, right? That has been like very influential on almost everything I've done. So.
Very cool. All right, let me highlight one more here just quick, and then we'll close out with some announcements. Nate, I want to give Nate a shout out. He, if this is the right Nate, I believe I was on his podcast not long ago, talking cool stuff and things. So Nate, if you want to drop a link afterwards in the show notes or the comment section, that'd be sweet. His question is, how do you guys approach meditation and mental prayer, if at all? Yeah, my prayer life is very much basics. I have monkey brain, and like, so I'm not good at it, right? Right. It's never been easy for me to pray or or any of that. Which is all the more reason that I need to practice, and I need to do it more. So I completely agree. It is essential for the good life. And this is actually where, sometimes people will take digs at rote prayer, but rote prayer is actually really helpful to me, like the rosary, like the Jesus prayer, because it gets me into a rhythmic breathing pattern. Focusing on the mysteries really actually helps to kind of control monkey brain. So I will say, actually, having the sort of the rote prayers, and those two are big for me. So we pray a rosary every day as a family. I was at Mass this morning. Mass obviously is like putting myself in a different environment is really important too. So that's the other thing I'll say is, like, I can't pray where I'm doing work, because for me, like, the environment is always a trigger for me. Like, workspace that's when I'm thinking about work. So I have to, like, physically relocate myself either to where we pray our rosary as a family, or like Mass, like we did this morning. So getting your whole body into it is really helpful for somebody like me, and changing your environment are two things that I would say have just been really helpful. Jim, how about you?
Yeah, I just don't know that I'm sufficiently confident that I've made enough progress in this to, like, comment on how to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think to that is, a priest one told me, it's like, it's okay if you're bad at it. Right? God doesn't demand that you're good at it, right? So, and like, don't confuse, like, the feelings you have in prayer with prayer's efficaciousness. And I found that actually really simple and good advice, because I am bad at it, right? So don't let that bother you. Yeah, good stuff. What are you working on, Jim? What do you want to announce before we go?
I'm doing some pretty big edits in the book, because there's progress in that front. So that's happening, right? Pretty happy with that.
So give us a reminder. What is the theme of the book? What is the tentative title? And when do we think this magisterial work will be produced? Yeah.
Thinking about thinking, mind and meaning in the era of technological nihilism, right? So it's first two chapters are kind of a full frontal attempt to defend a kind of externalism about mind, right? In a number of fronts, and then applying that to issues in chapter 3 about what human freedom is, chapter 4 whether there can be bona fide artificial intelligence, and then the 5th chapter is the discussion of what all that tells us about the relation between technology and nihilism.
Oh, awesome!
There it is.
This is gonna be a good one. What are we looking at lengthwise? Is this a tome, or is it more of a slim?
So right now in like the Word documents, it's weighing in at about 250 pages.
Okay.
So who knows what that'll. I know it depends on, like, what they do with it. It can get longer that way, or it can get shorter that way. So
yeah.
So
fantastic, great news. Well,
so it's like, I think in the Word documents, it's 5 plus the introduction, and so the main body chapters are all, like, in Word, like 35 pages, 40 pages, and then there's a 25-page introduction and a 7-page epilogue.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will keep everybody updated about that. That's always cool to hear on that front. Otherwise, we'll probably continue Aristotle next week, maybe.
Yeah, maybe finally get around to it again. We'll see.
You know what? It's just a series that happens when it happens.
So exactly.
Get used to it.
The track and swimming seasons have begun.
Yes.
And soccer. That's on the weekends. That's less.
Yeah. So. Had a cool conversation with Trent Horn that went up yesterday on his channel on classical theism versus theistic personalism, or whatever it's called these days. So that was fun. Too brief of a conversation, but a good one. And so people might want to check that out. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next week.
Good stuff.
Be a vessel of love. Bye-bye.
Yep.